Hello, everyone. How are you? I hope everyone is having a great day so far. If you have not done so already, hey, grab a cup of coffee, a glass of water, a cup of tea, anything that helps you relax. Let's get our minds ready to learn, to embrace new information, and to reacquaint ourselves with colleagues and to meet new ones. Again, everybody, welcome to today's webinar title Delivering Interpreter Training to High School Students. We are so pleased you have joined us today. Before we start, we want to hear from you. I see some people are coming in, Maria, oh my goodness, people coming from Virginia, California, Atlanta. I see several names, Lisa. Again, thank you so much. Please do that. Feel free to drop in the chat where you are connecting from. We love seeing how global our community is. For those that don't know me, my name is Analia. I am the Senior Manager of Training and Curriculum at Cross Cultural Communications. I am joined today by my colleague, Naisel Zavala, our Program Manager. Naisel will be managing the chat and sharing helpful links throughout the webinar. To see the ASL interpretation, click on Interpretation and select the American Sign Language option. Thank you so much to Madison and Sheree, our ASL interpreters today. Before we begin, we would like to share our upcoming opportunities. The links to the trainings will be posted on the chat, and just a reminder that CCC operates on Eastern Time Zone. Okay, this summer, we are hosting the Community Interpreter International Training of Trainers. Attend this online training and learn how to lead your own sessions of the most widely taught national 40-hour license certificate program for community, educational, and medical interpreting. The training runs from July 13th through the 31st. Now, everyone, one of the skills that we need to have as interpreters, listen to the next message. 736 terms, 139 acronyms, the first bilingual English-Spanish glossary built for educational interpreters. Ta-da! It's almost here. Pre-register for the Educational Interpreting Glossary to receive a 20% early bird discount. It launches at the end of this month. Okay, let's talk about today. The presentation will run for about 50 minutes, followed by a Q&A. Please use the Q&A feature to submit questions to our presenter. For general questions or questions for CCC, any comments that you want everyone to see, please use the chat function and be sure to set it to everyone so we can see everybody can reply back to your comments or questions that you may have. This webinar has been approved for CE use. Within 48 hours, you will receive an email with a link to download your certificate of attendance. Important information. If you don't see it, be sure to check the junk or spam folder. Certificates are available only to live attendees and must be downloaded within 3 weeks. After that, the link will expire. Once downloaded, please remember to add your name and, of course, save a copy for your records. Okay, now let's get started. CCC is delighted to welcome today's presenter, Omari Jeremiah. Hello, Omari. He's coming in. Let me tell you about Omari. Hi, Omari. Omari has worked as a freelance Spanish interpreter for over 10 years, specializing in the area of educational interpreting, mental health interpreting, and legal interpreting outside the courtroom. He received his BA in sociology from Goucher College and his MA in counseling from the University of Baltimore. Omari is a passionate youth advocate as well as an advocate for language access in educational systems. He has worked as a resource provider for immigrant students and their families in Baltimore City Public Schools and Baltimore County Public Schools. As a licensed interpreter trainer for over 9 years, Omari has trained both high school students and multilingual professionals to become professional community interpreters. In addition to his native language of English, Omari, like if we didn't have already enough great things to hear from him, is also linguistically competent in Spanish, Swahili, Portuguese, and American Sign Language. Besides his love for languages, Omari is the author of the children's book series Paperboy. Thank you, Mary, again for joining us. With that, I will turn the floor to you.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Analia. I very much appreciate it. Hello, everyone. It's awesome to see people from around the country, from around the world. I see people logging in from Panama, California. Let's see, I saw Egypt as well, Maryland. So welcome everyone to this presentation. Thank you so much for joining. I'm going to share my screen here. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So you know a little bit about me. I'm going to introduce what we do at Next Generation Language Access. This is an organization, a nonprofit organization that I started. And our mission is to train high school students, specifically first and second generation immigrant high school students, to become professional interpreters. Tagline being empowering communities through language. And I'm going to talk about what that process looks like. Also talking about ways in which we can develop similar programs with students that we know, in schools that we are in communities that we are involved in. This will be an interactive presentation. There will be surveys. If we have our phone somewhere nearby and we can scan our QR code, that is perfect. If we do not have a phone, that's okay too. We'll just have we'll have a link that you can use so that you can participate in those surveys as they come up. Okay, let's see if we are ready. Are we ready for the presentation here? A couple yeses in the chat if we are ready to go. Yes, I see some yeses. All right, let's go into it. So first, I'd like to just get to know you all. So you got to know me a little bit more from that beautiful introduction from Analia, but I'm curious about what brought us here today. What makes us interested in this topic of training high school students to become interpreters? I'm curious about what our interest is, what that looks like, and this is going to be our first discussion here. So we can see our Mentimedia here. You can scan the QR code to answer this question. You can also join menti.com and using this code here to answer this question. Let's take about 2 to 3 minutes. What brings us here today? What makes us interested in this topic of training high school students to be interpreters? Let's see what we get. We're going to give about 2 minutes for people to answer the poll while we're getting some responses here. I see curiosity, it's important, interested in new ideas, preserving language and culture. Let's see if some many other ideas come up here. Grow the career. I see a lot of curiosity here. Okay. Top medical interpretation. We also have some responses coming in the chats. I see education, interested in the concepts. Employment opportunities. We're going to be talking about that. Introducing them to a new field. Also, we'll be talking about that as well. I'm going to give it about 30 seconds here. We got a good amount of responses. See if we get a couple more. We need more interpreters. We'll definitely be talking about that as well. We definitely need more interpreters. We have some people working with bilingual high school students. I see lack of interpreters. Preserving language. Very nice. Love the responses here. This is awesome. Thank you all for your engagements. I have bilingual high school children. What can it look like to have one of my children in a program like this? We'll be talking about that as well. 30 more seconds. It's a rare topic to discuss. Help break language barriers. All right. I see in terms of the responses I'm seeing, some patterns I'm seeing are definitely curiosity, want to learn more about this. What does this look like? I see a lot in terms of we need interpreters. There's a lack of interpreters. We're going to be talking about that very soon. And a lot of us either have children, work with bilingual children, are aware of bilingual children, and see this as a potential opportunity for bilingual children. And that's something we're going to be talking about as well. Thank you, everyone, for your responses. So, at the end of that beautiful introduction, I'm going to talk a little bit about the need that I have seen and need that we see in research, a little bit more about myself, and go into what we do in next generation language access. So let's talk a little bit more about the need that we're seeing in communities. So I'm currently based in Baltimore City. So the data that we're looking at here is based in Baltimore City. However, this is not unique to Baltimore City. This is actually a national challenge. Focusing on Baltimore City specifically, Baltimore City is in the state of Maryland. For those outside the country, this is a city in the state of Maryland in the United States. There are two social challenges that are faced by the limited English proficient population, or LEP population. One is access to services. If somebody were to go to a doctor, if someone were to go to a school counselor, if someone were to go to a social service office to seek services, many times there is a language barrier if they speak a language other than English. That has led to poor outcomes in medical settings, poor outcomes in education settings, poor outcomes in social service settings, because service users, those that are looking to use a service so that they are able to support themselves, support their families, are not actually able to access that service due to a language barrier. This is also linked to the second social challenge that we are seeing, which is falling into poverty. There is data here, and just in terms of what we're talking about in terms of population, in Baltimore City alone, about 10% of the city population in Baltimore City does not speak English at home, about 8% being foreign born. We're talking about approximately 49,000 people, and this population continues to grow. And so the need for providing services that people are able to equitably access continues to grow. Now, usually the way we would provide this access is by interpreters. However, as we saw in our brief introduction there, we don't have enough interpreters. We don't have enough professionally trained interpreters to meet the need to provide equitable language access. What this has resulted in research showing that nearly 100% of the LEP population, again, limited English proficients, LEP population, is considered to be at risk to a medical injury due to a language barrier, at risk of getting inappropriate education services due to language barrier, not getting food stamps due to language barrier, different services that are needed to be successful in the city that they're in the state that they're in. Language barriers are a big barrier to actually getting access to those services. Longer hospital stays, delayed court cases, delayed social service requests have all been consequences of language barriers in these settings. This is also linked to poverty. Poverty is a strong reality for the LEP population, especially the foreign-born LEP population. There's research showing that someone that is the first generation or second generation immigrant that's at least 18 years old is actually 30% more likely to fall into poverty than someone who is not a first, second generation or second generation immigrant in the United States. The question is, what can we do to change this? We know that interpreters are needed to be able to change this dynamic, but we also know that we don't have enough professionally trained interpreters. This is something that I have seen in my experience as well. So I first started working as a bilingual parent liaison in Baltimore City schools. And my job was basically to provide resources to those that were limited English proficient in Baltimore City. And I would see that parents would bring their child, they would bring a friend, a family member, a community member, because they knew that when they went into that office, when they were going to request services, They knew that there wasn't going to be someone there that's going to be able to provide equitable language access services to them. They knew the only way they'll be able to understand what they needed to be successful was by providing someone that usually is not trained to be in those settings to try to provide that language access, which goes into this data that we're seeing here in terms of misused services, services that were inappropriately provided, and things like that. The question is, how do we change this? I'm one person. I can't be all around the school. There's a huge need here. We need more interpreters. How do we get more interpreters? So the first thing I thought is, okay, well, I need to go through professional training because I was a bilingual individual put into this role, but I was not a professionally trained interpreter, right? So I went through professional training, which opened my eyes in terms of what it means to be a professionally trained interpreter and what it really means to actually provide language access to those that are limited English proficiency. And so I thought, okay, we need to have a language access plan for our school. We need to have more bilingual staff. We need to find a way to be able to provide interpreters and determine the need for interpreters based on the languages that our community speaks. Fast forward a little bit, we still didn't have enough interpreters. But fast forward a little bit, that was always a challenge. I took a job in a high school, and this was in 2017. And I was seeing the same type of problem here in terms of lack of language access, huge demand for services, not enough services being provided in languages that service users are able to understand, and so not able to actually access those services that are needed: education services, medical services, social services. But as I was walking through the hallways in the high school I was in, and I was talking to students in the high school I was in, it really hit me that these are the students that have the potential to help us get past this problem. What if we were to invest the time and energy into training the students that we are in, the students in our community, to become professionally trained interpreters to meet the language access challenges that we're seeing in our communities? And I thought back to my training as an interpreter, that to be a professional interpreter in the United States, one has to be a community interpreter, one has to be at least 18 years old, have a high school diploma, and have their language proficiency independently evaluated in addition to 40 hours, at least 40 hours of professional training by a licensed interpreter trainer. So what if we trained students that were in their third year of high school, juniors, or in their fourth year of high school, about to graduate, seniors, to become professionally trained interpreters so that when they graduate, they can move into positions as interpreters to help to meet these language access needs, but also changing that statistic of falling into poverty at the same time by providing them an equitable job opportunity and a meaningful job opportunity and a financially viable job opportunity when they graduate. And so this was back in 2017, so I was reaching out. I reached out to cross-cultural communications, try to get some ideas, see if anyone had done this before, see if there's something that I can build on to potentially do this. And nobody had done this. There was no documentation throughout the United States that a school or individual had trained high school students to become interpreters. This has generally been given to working professionals as a professional development opportunity as it was given to me. And so I thought, all right, well, let's try something that hasn't been done before. Can we create a process so that we can have this training be accessed by the high school student population? And so that's something that they're able to do. And that has become what is now next generation language access. We specifically train high school students to become interpreters. We operate in 2 states and currently in 4 school districts, training the high school student population to work as interpreters and support them in jobs when they actually graduate from high school. So I'm going to go into what we do here. So in addition to making sure that training, also connecting them to different types of job opportunities they can do after they graduate. That is what we do at Next Generation Language Access. And that's what we've been doing since 2017 when this nonprofit was started. So a couple of stories here. During this process, I got to meet a lot of students, right? And during the process, I got to hear why they were interested in training. And this student isn't mentioned here, but just want to come through a couple stories. One of our first group, the very first group that I had, her name was Yesenia. And Yesenia wrote that she was interested in becoming an interpreter because Her parents were going to be deported back to El Salvador. Their temporary protective status was not going to be renewed. She had two siblings, and she was now going to be in charge of her family. She was going to be the person providing for her family. She was 18 years old. She was a senior in high school, and she had no idea what to do. She had no idea what that was going to look like. And so she decided that she was just going to not do anything and hope it works out. She was very scared. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know what it looked like to move forward until she actually attended a presentation that we delivered about this program in terms of being an interpreter. And she wrote on her application that she was dedicated to completing training. She wrote on her application about the challenges she has with her family and that she sees this as a way of moving through those challenges and be successful. And now Yesenia is a professionally trained interpreter. She's trained to be a court certified interpreter in the state of Maryland. We also have a number of students here. These are some of our recent graduates. So, many that are currently working as professionally trained interpreters. We train students that speak Yoruba, Spanish, Arabic, Swahili, Gujarati, a variety of languages, and that we see here as well. These students in this picture, I actually saw some of these students yesterday. They're technically not students at this point. They graduated from high school, but for me, they're still students. But they are currently working as interpreters or as bilingual professionals in different types of jobs we connected them with. On the right side here, we see Ashley. Ashley is one of our graduates from our interpreter program. Ashley completed our program. She now contracts with museums. She contacts with different organizations to provide her interpretation services. And in addition to that, what we learned throughout this process of providing the interpreter program is that there was definitely a need for interpreters, but a lot of service providers also wanted to be able to connect with their service users. They wanted to be able to speak Spanish to parents that came in or speak French to clients that they had. There was also a demand for adult language classes. And so in addition to the interpreter program that we provide, we also provide adult language classes for working professionals that are taught by the graduates of our interpreter program. And Ashley is one of our first graduates that taught those classes. She taught adult ESL to parents in the high school that she graduated from. She also taught Spanish to teachers from the high school she graduated from, many of her former teachers. And so that dynamic of seeing someone that you taught before who is now able to teach you provide this level of empowerment that's what really impacted that school and that community. And also for parents, the feedback that we got the most wasn't so much that I'm able to access ESL classes for free. I'm able to learn English. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time. The biggest feedback was that I see someone that looks like me, that comes from the community that I come from. And now I know I can do this because I see someone who's able to do this as well. And so that is something that we do, and that's why our tagline is empowering communities through language, is that something that's important to us, to provide that level of empowerment for people to reach their goals using the skills that they inherently have. So that's a little bit of success stories. We have a lot of success stories. We have students that have started working as interpreters, earning $41 an hour as an interpreter. Students that started their own business as interpreters as well. We can have a whole webinar just about the success stories we've had. But I want to go into a little bit about what this looks like to actually develop training in communities that we are in, and what it looks like to actually provide supports for this or similar to this, and with students that we work with. I saw a lot of responses in the chat that we know bilingual students. We have bilingual students. We work with bilingual students. What would it look like to actually provide a service like this for the students and for the children that we work with? So this is what we're going to do. We're going to think in terms of considerations of how we provide training. The training that we provide is based on the Community Interpreter International. And so we're thinking about, which is CCII. So we're thinking about here, what is the pre-training process? What is our screening process for determining who gets into the training program? During training, how can we make a training as impactful as possible for the high school student population? And post-training, what does it look like when someone finishes training? What are their employment outcomes? And how can we ensure that they are successful as interpreters after they have actually completed the program? We might be thinking about creating our own program, thinking about what it would look like to maybe add on to a program that we're currently doing. And so these are the three categories we're going to be looking at in terms of considerations of how to construct said program. Okay, let's first start with pre-training here. I've been talking for a while. I'm going to get back to our interactive activities here and think a little bit about if we were to create a program for high school students to become interpreters, there's some guiding questions we want to think about in terms of that program creation. One, what students should you target? Do we want to target students that are just starting high school, being freshmen, students that are just about to finish, being seniors? What level of students do we want to target? Do we want to target students that are in ESL classes, students that are in foreign language classes? There's students that are in different types of classes in schools. What types of students do we want to focus on? Two, when would you ideally provide training? Would this be an after school program? Would this be a summer school program? Is this something we want to have during the school day? Or maybe something that we want to offer virtually? When would you provide it? And after you decide when you would provide the training, when will you actually market this training to potential students? They have to know that this is an opportunity here, but when would you do that? Is that something that would be done after the school day? Is it a YouTube video you create that you send out to different people? There's different ways to do this, but these are some guiding questions to help us think about how we would start a training process. So let's go into our first question here. These are just a couple examples here about what students should you target here. I'm going to go to our next question. Bear with me a moment here. Oh, if I can, I'm just going to go into, bear with me one moment. Which student should you target here? So we have another Mentimedia question here. Assuming that we're working with high school students, freshmen being their first year, sophomore being their second year, junior being their third year, senior being their fourth year, what would you do? Which students would you target here? I'm going to give us about 2 to 3 minutes to respond to this poll. Remember, you can either scan the QR code with your phone. You can also go to menti.com and enter the code below on your computer. I also see some response in the chat. See a lot of responses for juniors. Okay, some for freshmen and sophomores. And if these terms aren't familiar to anyone, please let me know. Would love to hear our thoughts about juniors. We got a lot of responses for juniors here. Starting even younger. Okay, let's give it about 30 seconds. I think our results are plateauing here. Looks like most of us would focus on juniors being their third year of high school. This is an interesting school year to target because these students will be in school next year, but we can provide a foundation for them to have meaningful employment opportunities while they're in school. And so that is something that focusing on juniors allows you to do. I'm going to go back here. So a couple things here. Well, actually, let me go to my next question. I'm going to go to my next question here. Question number 2, when would you ideally provide training? So most of us are going to focus on juniors. When are you going to offer that training to juniors? During the school day, after school, summer program, or maybe another time that's not mentioned here? When would you provide this training? Got a lot of during the school day. I see some responses in the chat, summer, after school. Most of us are voting for the school day here. We'll give another 30 seconds here for additional responses. In the chat, we have anytime, depends. All right, looks like most of us are thinking we would offer this during the school day here. And then second, a summer school program. During the school day is something that we do in terms of training as well. And it has been something that has been an equitable way of providing training. A lot of students that are in our training programs are working after school, and they're working to support themselves. They're working to support their families. It's not an optional thing. It's something that they need to do to be able to support themselves so that they are financially stable. But it's also something in which that cycle of poverty continues to perpetuate itself, right? And so during the school day, by providing that training, it's a way for them to have access to interpreter training, but they're also able to support themselves financially by working afterwards if they choose to do so. And then they have access to meaningful job opportunities because they did the training during the school day. So that's definitely a great way of offering training. Summer program is one way we offer training as well. Awesome, awesome. Last question to think about. Most of us are going to target juniors. Most of us are going to do this during the school day. But when would you actually talk to those juniors about the program you're going to offer during the school day? Would you talk to them during homeroom? Would you talk to them sometime after homeroom, but during the school day? Would you talk to them after school? Would you talk to them virtually? How would you actually reach out to students about this opportunity? All right, let's see how our responses are coming in here. Looks like we got a lot for homeroom. A lot of people saying homeroom here. Remember, there's no right or wrong answers to this. This is just brainstorming. It's okay if we don't have the full answer right now. This is just to get us thinking about what can this potentially look like if we were to develop a program for students in this way. Most of us voting for homeroom. I'm going to give us about 20 more seconds here. Let's see what we think. Most of our responses coming for homeroom here. Homeroom is an interesting time to talk about the program for students. Oftentimes, they might be hearing about different news announcements, things that are happening that day. And to be able to know that this is something that they can do is also a way of reaching a wide variety of students, of knowing, oh, this is an opportunity that I can do. Okay, I found out about homeroom. Now I want to get more information. So homeroom can definitely be a good way of reaching out to students. And I see during the school day, sometime after homeroom, also something that's very helpful in terms of reaching students here. Let's talk a little bit about the NGLA approach, how we actually do this here. So we focus specifically on juniors and seniors when we are marketing, when we are doing interpreter training. We offer training in a wide variety of ways. As I mentioned, we offer it during the school day. We offer as an after-school program. We offer as a summer school program. We do training hybrid. We do training virtual. We do trainings in a variety of ways to fit the needs of the students and the school that we're providing training in. Generally, when we are marketing training to potential students, we do it during auditorium presentations. We do it during the classes. So we ask the teacher if we can talk in their class for some period of time. We've also done any type of big school events. We also market a program there. We'll send flyers home. We are trying to think about all the variety of ways in which students get information and in which parents get information, and try to provide this opportunity in those communication methods. So that's what we do at Next Generation Language Access. But we have a plan going on here, which is super exciting, right? So we have an idea about how we would actually market the program to students. Here's the second thing to think about. How should we actually deliver the program to students? Thinking about the curriculum for Community Interpreter International, which this training is primarily based on, how would we actually implement this training for high school students? Now, generally, when we're thinking about the curriculum, for those that are familiar with it, there's 5 modules: Introduction to Community Interpreting, Interpreting Protocols and Skills, Strategic Mediation, Professional Identity, the role of an interpreter. But how would we make any changes or add anything specifically for the high school student population? If we're thinking about the bilingual students that we know, the bilingual students we work with, the bilingual students that we have seen, and we're thinking about what it's the different part of training for Community Interpreter International, is there something else that would be helpful for students to know in addition to these 5 modules? That's the question that I want us to think about here. And I'm going to give us a little bit of time with this. I'm going to start with this here. First of all, we're thinking about the order of the modules from 1 to 5. Should we make any changes to those orders? Instead of starting with module 1, should we start with module 2? Should we start with module 3, 4, 5? Should we change the order of how that's actually delivered? This requires some knowledge of the Community Interpreter International to answer this question. I see some yeses, maybe. A lot of yeses. Also going to give us 30 seconds here. Love the participation. Thank you so much for participating in the chat, participating in the survey. This is awesome. A lot of us seems to be in agreement that, yes, we should change the module order for the high school student population. All right, let's give it 15 more seconds, see if anybody else. Also just reading the chat, a lot of interesting responses in the chat here. All right, looks like most of us are saying yes. So we would change the module order. We'll talk a little bit more about what that can look like. My second question for you all is if you can add a new module, something that does not exist in the Community Interpreter International, what would you add for high school students? This is an open-ended question. Again, feel free to type your answer out here. Would you add something for how to get a job? Would you add something for how to perfect your simultaneous skills or your sight translation skills? What module would you add for high school students if you had the opportunity to do so? Work-study balance. I see ethics here, how to do simultaneous interpreting, ethics, cultural awareness, career readiness skills. Love it. Awesome. More note-taking strategies. How to deal with the stress of interpreting. Yes, definitely a big one. Mentorship. How to build trust. HIPAA requirements. That's a big one. I also see some of the response in the chat here. Self-care, how to market yourself. I wish we could all just be in a room and brainstorm together, right? Like we're coming up with some awesome ideas here. Professionalism notes, simultaneous interpretation. 30 more seconds to see what else we can come up with. If you could add your own modules, what would you add for high school students? What do you think that students that you work with can benefit from? Dealing with vicarious trauma, yes. Something that we definitely have to talk about more often. Interpretation versus translation, for sure. Let's see if we have any other responses here. Professional dress, how to manage a business management tools. So we have a lot of variety of modules we would offer here. Awesome, awesome. I hope we're thinking about this and thinking about what it would look like to actually create these things, because we have some really great ideas here. And this is how the business started. It starts of ideas like this and brainstorming sessions similar to what we're doing today. So I'm going to go back here. So in terms of the NGLA approach, how do we approach training here? So here, we do the Community Interpreter International, but we have added additional modules to our training that are unique to next generation language access. We have a whole module created for note-taking for interpreters. So our students are able to perfect their note-taking skills. I thought some of us mentioned that in the chat. We also have interpreting stations module, and this is when students practice and perfect their skills in doing over the phone interpretation, video remote interpretation, remote simultaneous interpretation. We have different stations, is what we call them, in which we practice those different ways of interpreting. Simultaneous interpreting. For those of us that are simultaneous interpreters, we know that it takes a lot of practice to really be good at simultaneous interpreting. We have a whole module dedicated to that so that they can master simultaneous interpreting as well. And a lot of people were saying something similar to this. For us, we call this career readiness, in which students are perfecting a resume. All of them have a resume ready to go when they finish. Perfect a cover letter. They all have a cover letter ready to go when they finish our program, and do job interview practice. During our training itself, we always have employers, at least 4 different employers that we partner with. We have a large group of workforce partners, as we call them, and they are partners that we grow, that we develop relationships with, that hire our students when they complete training. And so that career readiness module helps our students to be ready to move into those job positions. So everyone is able to work when they complete training, and that's our goal here. Notice also on the right side that our order of doing training is different too. We start with module 2 when we do training. And the reason that we start with module 2, for those of us familiar with the Community Interpreter International, is that this is a very hands-on module. You start to get interpreting and doing different types of interpretation exercises right away. This has been a more engaging way of hooking in high school students than starting with module 1 in our experience. We still cover module 1, it comes in later, but this is the order in which we do training with high school students. It's not so much based on the number, it's based on the actual topic, so that one flows to the other. And again, when they get this career readiness module, that's when they're getting connected with those job opportunities. That's when they're just about done with training. And that's when they start to complete those applications, do their job interviews, and they start to work in different organizations. I wouldn't say that's my favorite part, but it's one of my favorite parts. To be honest, it's very empowering to see them, how much they grow from module 2 to module 9. It's really amazing. So that is what we do at Next Generation Language Access. Okay, so we have discussed before training what we would do. We discussed during training different modules we would add. Now, we briefly talked about this, or I briefly talked about this, but what's going to happen after training ends? What will happen to your students once training is completed? Are they going to be working as an interpreter? Are they working as a bilingual professional? Is there something, can we ensure that there is a pathway for these students when they finish? It's not just about saying, okay, we did training, good luck, right? Like, to ensure that we are actually providing equitable supports, can we also provide a pathway for them to get those working opportunities that are needed? Because again, we need professional interpreters, but also to ensure that they have the skills and the support to work into different organizations, or what will happen to students? So that is the first question I'm going to ask you here via Menti. What do you want your outcome to be when students complete your training? Or what will happen to your target students when training is completed? Are they working after they're finishing? Do you want them to prepare for medical certification after they finish? That's also something that can happen. Prepare them for court certification after they finish. Do you want them to interpret for a certain amount of time? What would you want to see when they actually finish the training that you've created here? I see work with our school districts, gain experience, work as professionals, find employment, good jobs. A lot of these around employment opportunities, prepare for medical certification, internships at hospitals. Love that idea. More practice, yes. Working at hospitals. Better opportunity, work in their communities. Gain some experience in the fields. Also see in the chat here, employment opportunities, continue building their language skills, internship shadowing, hospitals or courts. Voluntary work for some time. Awesome ideas, everyone. Awesome ideas. So I think the pattern that we're seeing here are employment opportunities. A lot of us are looking for our students to be able to have opportunities to work, or whether it be internship, whether it be volunteer, but some type of work experience shadowing, internships, employments when they actually complete the training that we started to devise here. So now that we have an idea about what we want to see in terms of outcome, I have one more question for you all. My last question for you all. And the last question I have for you is what we see on the slide, is how do you know that outcome is going to be achieved? How will you know the training has been successful for your student population? Because if we want them to be in employment opportunities, how can we ensure they are in employment opportunities after that training has been completed? Last Mentimeter question here. Let's see what we come up with. How will you know the training that you have created has been successful for your student population? Maybe we decide that we will call students and see what they're doing. Maybe we're the people that are actually going to hire students to work. Maybe we will text students. I see surveys here, feedback from employers, follow up with students, feedback on the course. So when students are hired, I'll hire them themselves. If we are able to hire them themselves, that's how we would know the training's been successful, right? That's something you could do. I'm going to give us a little bit more time to answer this one. So I'm going to give us a little bit under a minute for this one. More confidence in both languages. Check in with students quarterly. Certification. It's a variety of things, right? Let's take about 20 seconds or so. Allow them to shadow, give them opportunities. Become trainers in the future. I see that in the chat. Yes, that's something that we provide a pathway for them to do. All right, so I'm seeing here, send them a Mincy. Yes, we can do that too. So I see a lot of surveys here. Surveys, I think surveys is probably the biggest thing I would see here in terms of pattern. I also see a lot in terms of employment, those that are employed, the number that are certified as well. Probably the three biggest things I'm seeing here, knowing that our training has been successful. So a little bit about what we do. So in terms of the NGLA approach, so again, we always have employers that we connect with that are actually come to our training to hire our students. So students that are in our program will have at least one job opportunity, if not three. We also have career coaches, and those career coaches guide students when they actually complete the program in terms of supporting them with that job application process and supporting them with moving into employment positions based on their interests and their passions. So that's what happens when training is completed. The way we know that training has been successful for students here at Next Generation Language Access is by surveys. We send them a survey once training has been completed, 3 months out, 6 months out, and a year out, to see what they're doing, to see what the impact of our training has been on their outcomes and what they're doing in the future. And so those stories I was telling you about Yesenia, about Ashley, about students are the results of those surveys and just following up with students to see how they're doing. We have a group where we stay in contact with our students often. Building those relationships is something that's very important to us so that we can support them in becoming the best version of themselves. And that's what we aim to do. And something that I think that we can all do in the work that we want to see with bilingual students to help to provide more language access and provide meaningful work opportunities for the bilingual high school student population. So thank you so much for your time here. Love the ideas we came up with. I hope this provides a baseline for us to start to think about how we would actually deliver training, how we can support our students, knowing about opportunities that exist. Happy to leave some time for questions, any feedback, and thank you all for attending today. I very much appreciate it. I'll stop sharing for a moment.
There you go. I was muted. I have seen you and heard you presenting about the work that Next Generation Language Access does, but it was amazing just to hear 50 minutes of everything that goes into it. Okay, so if you look at the QA, Omari, I'm going to let you choose the questions in order of how you would like to answer them. There are some of those are questions, some of those are comments. And so I think I would let you choose which ones you would like to address.
All right, let me take a look through our questions here. Got a good amount of questions.
Somebody says, you're such an inspiration.
Aw,
Great presentation. People are just loving it, Omari. You're
I
amazing
appreciate it.
presenter. Great flow. Wow.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great
Thank you.
speaker. My goodness gracious. People are loving you, Mari. And we're
I
so
love this too. Like I love and I honestly that story I'll say in terms of Yesenia. So that was one of the first applications that I saw and that really and I still have that application to this day. I walk around with it, especially on those hard days, like just knowing this is the potential and
yes.
this brings out the potential in others is something that I deeply am passionate about and something that I just love to do. So I appreciate sharing that passion with others and to see that reflected as well. So thank you all for attending and sharing this time with me. I appreciate it. Let's see which questions I can answer here. Let me see. There's a lot of questions, so I'm trying to trying to pick a question here. Any organization that trains high school student bilingual students in Northern Colorado? Not to my knowledge. So I'm not sure. And again, in terms of, to my knowledge, in terms of nonprofit organization, we're the only nonprofit that trains high school students to become interpreters. I know there's some school districts that have also developed training programs for interpreters, and I know there's more interest in doing so. So it might be some
Mhm.
school districts that are working on it, that are currently doing it. But to my knowledge, not this time that I'm aware of in Northern Colorado. Let's see here.
Well, you look for one. There was a question about if the webinar is over. The webinar is over at 12:30. So we still have 8 more minutes for those that would like to receive a certificate of attendance. Just, hang on till the next 8 minutes. Thank you.
Let's see, we have an issue with high school students not getting credit at higher level AP honors for interpreting courses they took through community college. How can we get the State Department of Education to approve this? So I think the question in terms of the battle with the State Department to approve is state specific. I
Mhm.
think this is also very something that's very new in terms of employment opportunities, right? And so it takes time for something that is new to be seen as something that is needed and just as relevant as things that have already existed. So I'm sure it's going to be a battle for some time, and I'm happy
Mhm.
to just connect offline about how we can collaborate in terms of presenting information about the impact of this program as well. But that's where partners come in as well. I mean, that's a big reason in terms of why we decided to work as a nonprofit is because we can fill in the gaps that states are looking to fill but can't, right? So we can provide those gaps, and so I think yes, it's definitely worth to see how this can be a course that is recognized by the state, but
Mhm.
there's also opportunity to work with partners that are doing similar work um, to actually get the work done, right? Because we're not under the same types of requirements as a school might be under. Let me see. As a homeschool student, how could I get this training as someone whose school does not provide this program? So someone wants to get the training that's not, and their school doesn't currently offer it on their in-home school, that can be something, and again, that's reaching out to partners in terms of providing training. It is possible to do training online. I think for high school students, doing training online is an option, but being with other students that are collaborating
Mhm.
together to do training makes it a lot more meaningful for them as well. Our experience working with the schools that we work with is that um, whether hybrid training has been very successful. We do hybrid training. In-person training has been very successful, but they haven't liked virtual training so much, especially since the pandemic. They haven't really liked to be on Zoom and do activities on Zoom.
Hmm.
They like being hands-on, doing things that are hands-on,
Yes.
moving around, engaging in different things like that. Like that's what draws their attention. Definitely not lecture. So not just telling them this is what you need to do to be an interpreter. They have to actually do it and get
Yes.
feedback on what they did to learn what it means to be an interpreter. And so if there's ways in which you can provide that experience, that's what helps them to learn the best. So it's also approaching training from a slightly different perspective. Let me see if there's another question I can answer. Yep.
There was a
You gonna say
question
something over
about
here?
what challenges have you faced or do you face? It could be past or still. What are some of the challenges?
So a challenge that we face, we train students regardless of their immigration status to become interpreters. They can be
Mm,
refugees, they can be asylum seekers, they can be undocumented students. Now, for our documented student population, it's more challenging in terms of work opportunities for our students that have some type of work authorization.
mm,
We do have training set up for those that are still working on their work authorization to be able to work. And we also offer that to anyone that wants to start their own business as interpreters to do that. But we are still trying to make sure, and this is something I think about often, how can we ensure that A, we're linking students to legal services to get work authorization. But in the meantime, can we provide equitable opportunities for them to work as much as students that already have that work authorization? And there's challenges in that. There's also been accomplishments
mhm.
we've had with that, but that's something that we also are working through too.
Great answer. You got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah. What are some challenges you have seen first-time high school students face, and what advice would you give them? So the question, I think this is a really good question. Personally, what I have seen in the schools that we work with is that students are coming in thinking that the language that they learned first as a child,
Hmm.
their first language, was not as important as English. There's something
Mm,
systemically in which learning English has become more important than learning and valuing the culture that students come from. And they're coming in with that type of mentality. And so it becomes this big shock when they get to us and they're like, oh, wait, I do need to improve my Swahili. I do need to
yes.
improve my French. I do need to build on this. But no one has actually told me before that this is something that I need to build on and something I need to grow in until they get to
Hmm.
us. And so I think that becomes a challenge because again, we focus on students that are juniors in high school. So throughout the rest of their educational career, there hasn't been a focus on building your language skills until they're about to graduate from high school and they get
Yes.
us. And so that becomes a shift in mindsets that some students, it takes some time for them to make that change. There's
That's a
also
huge insight there, Omari. That's an insight
yeah,
that I hadn't considered before.
and I see it like the first year we're in a school, that's what I see. But the second and third year we're in the same school, that's when we see the change. Because that's when we see students that are saying, my language is important, my culture is important. I can work as an
Hmm.
interpreter. Now I'm out of ESL services. What can I do now? Oh, I can work as an interpreter. This is something I can do. It becomes something where they see their language as something that is valuable, but
Yes.
beforehand that wasn't seen as something else. It was about learning English, right? And so that's
Hmm.
something that has been a challenge, but also a big opportunity in terms of, again, empowering students. I think I have time for one more question. Okay, I think there's a lot of questions in terms of how to get in contact. And so if I'm going to share my screen one more time to answer the last question and to get in contact with us, definitely feel free to reach out to us. If you want to stay in contact, you can either scan our QR code. I'll put our website as well in the chat. You can sign up for our newsletter to find out more information about us, partner with us. We love to continue collaborating with you and continue to provide the service for students and ensuring that all students and everyone is able to get the services they need to be successful, regardless of where they are and in the communities that we live in. I want to thank everyone for their time. Thank you for the awesome questions. I'm sorry I couldn't get to all your questions, but definitely feel free to stay in contact. I'm going to leave my email and our website in the chat. Would love to connect with you all.
Wonderful.
And thank you again so much for your time.
Everyone, thank you so much, Omari. As you see, all the comments are just fantastic. They have loved the webinar, the content, the information, and they love your presentation style.
Oh.
So I'm sure that energy is great for high school students and for all of us adults too. But see, that's why we have to be energetic and live and really having the passion that you have. Okay, everyone, um, the webinar is formally over. So if you need to go and tend to the rest of your day, go back to work, anything that you got to do, just remember you will get the certificate of attendance 48 hours from when the webinar is over. And remember to download your certificate, add your name, and save your certificate. That link will expire 3 weeks after sent. So everybody, thank you so much, Omari. We're going to let you go. Fantastic webinar. We'll see you around. You're kind of like one of us here at CCC. So we'll see you soon. Thank you, Mari.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great
Bye.
day.
Thank you. And if anybody would like to stay, if you have any questions about cross-cultural communications, our Blue Horizon platform, anything that you have questions, I'm going to stay for a. Oh, thank you so much, everyone. That some people are saying, Analia, so nice to see you. So nice to see so many wonderful. I recognize so many names, and I'm focusing on the webinar. So please know that I look at the names. I appreciate your warm wishes, your kindness. I'm so glad that you join us today. We are a community. We need each other. Together, we're stronger. We have a greater impact on the field. And so each one of you is valuable to the profession and these souls that you reach. We cannot do it here at CCC. So we are just so grateful to be part of your lives through this webinar and get to hear everybody, your concerns, your opinions. And the reality is we cannot always solve everything, but together we glean ideas from each other, right? And then we go back to work stronger than ever. Nicel, could you please share Omari's information again? Somebody just typed that they want Omari's information. I know he posted it on the QR code. So Nicel will post it again if somebody has any other questions. And also remember that the webinar will be posted on our website. Usually is no later than Friday. So you can rewatch the webinar for free. Let your friends know that couldn't join us. If you were not here live, the person will not get a certificate of attendance. But you know what? Everybody can benefit from this information. So share it with your colleagues, share it in the school system that you work at, share it with the world. Thank you so much, Nicel. I tell you, Nicel is amazing. Here's the information from Omari. Just please look at the chat. But yes, let people know the recording will be for free. You're welcome, everyone, everybody. We're just so grateful for the platform that CCC offers to aid the profession, to strengthen all of us. So to us here at CCC, it's a pleasure to be here. This is one of my favorite things to do at CCC. Okay, so I think Nicel already posted information from Omari. Again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a wonderful rest of your day, a fantastic rest of your week, a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you. By the way, we don't have a webinar in July. So we will see you in August. And you're welcome. We're having a real treat in August. We won't tell you yet, but if you are a healthcare interpreter, a medical interpreter, obviously, if you are in the healthcare arena, you are going to love the webinar in August. Till then, everybody, and thank you so much before I leave to Nicelle, who does an amazing job here at CCC, and again to our wonderful ASL interpreters, Madison and Sheree, that join us today. Okay, everybody, thank you, and we'll see you in August. Bye.